welcome to Life Love Etc., a show that covers all aspects of life, relationships, and success. And I'm your host, Dr. Anna Elton. And today we have a special guest, Kristi Newhouse. She's a licensed social worker in the private practice, and she's absolutely amazing. We were just checking in before we joined, and she shared that she works with couples, she works with individuals, she covers anxiety, depression, parenting, and burnout. Welcome, Kristi.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this evening.
Absolutely. So let me actually ask you about yourself a little bit. Can you tell me about your practice? What do you do? What's your favorite, I guess, what's your favorite type of client, or what's the most challenging type of client?
Those are really good questions. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker and I practice in Southwest Florida. I've actually been in the field for about 30 years, but I have had my private practice for a little bit over 13 years. I work with individuals, couples, as well as young children. My favorite type of therapy, honestly, is to work with couples. That was very frightening initially, but as we become seasoned, it has become something that I really enjoy and look forward to.
Absolutely. I love working with couples. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, so I love couples. So when you think of relationships, what is one word that comes up? What do you think is missing the most in relationships?
One word that comes to mind is vulnerability. I think that, as we've grown up, the word vulnerability tend to have a negative connotation. Sometimes we were taught that it demonstrates weakness, that we shouldn't be vulnerable. But as we know, that in order to have an authentic and genuine relationship, one has to be vulnerable. We have to show up as our authentic self. And I think that people are afraid of that. They don't know how to do that.
Okay. I think my sound is not great, but again, we'll try. I'll speak louder and I'll get my mic closer to me. Um, and then I guess when you want to feel safe in a relationship, what do you think? What safety means to you?
So I think that emotional safety is probably the most important component in a relationship. If we don't feel emotionally safe, which basically means we want to be able to show up imperfect, we want to be able to show up as our authentic selves, we want to be able to show up flawed, and we want to make sure that our partner is consistent, that we can count on them consistently being a certain way when we show up, maybe not 100%. So if you don't have emotional safety, you really don't have much of anything else. We have to be able to be ourselves. We have to be able to show up as imperfect, flawed beings as we are, and know that our partner has us.
Absolutely. So we want to make sure that there's no walking on eggshells, right? We want to know that there's predictability in a relationship, right? We want to make sure that we can open up. And I think a lot of couples who come in, number one reasons what they want to work on, why they're here, they want to work on communication.
They all say that. That's like the one-liner. That's what they all enter therapy saying. We need to work on communication. And of course, communication is a big part of it. But as we dig deeper and we start to peel the layers off of the onion, we realize that there's more going on that we need to address.
So research shows number one reasons why couples fight: finances. Number two, intimacy. And number three, it's a tie. It's parenting, in-laws, and fair share of chores, responsibilities.
And that's what we see every day, right? Those are the things that people are coming in and they're stressing about, and those are the things that people want the most help navigating.
So I know when I was looking through your bio, I noticed attachment wounds.
Can
we talk about attachment wounds?
Attachment wounds. So attachment wounds, the way that I look at that and what I say to my couples that I see in therapy is when we show up in a relationship, imagine showing up with this really big, heavy backpack on your back, but it's invisible. So I can't see yours, you can't see mine, but it's heavy. And as time progresses and the longer we're here and we're accumulating experiences and we're experiencing relationships, more and more stuff gets thrown in our backpack.
Mm-hmm.
And the stuff that's in our backpack actually is our emotional wounds from the past, wounds from our childhood, wounds from whatever we've experienced. And if we don't address those wounds, or I guess we can also say, however we deal with those wounds contributes to our attachment style. So, if, for example, I grew up in a family or in a home that I was, maybe felt abandoned, likely my attachment style might be anxious attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And that baggage that I have in my backpack, that will definitely validate that. So we all have a certain attachment style, and it's really important to understand, what is that? What does that look like? And the reason why we have that attachment style is based on the stuff in our backpack, all of those experiences that we've accumulated, all the things that we've been exposed to.
And usually, what you see, it's you feel triggered, right? Something said, something done, then you have the big reaction, right? And then
Right.
when you start the conversation, at some point it can trigger the big reaction, right? And you can go into fight or flight. You can go into the freeze mode, right? A lot of things can happen. And
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I tell my couples that I work with, so we both are walking around with this really, really big, heavy backpack. And at some point in the relationship, they collide. And so now all of our stuff is all over the place. And we're like, okay, I didn't know that you came with that. That's something that triggers me. Oh, I didn't know that you had that to deal with. I don't know how to deal with that. So then all of a sudden we're left with this stuff that we have to learn to navigate. And we have to learn, how do we coexist? How do we commingle with all of this stuff?
And usually when you look at the attachment styles, right, you have this push and pull dynamic, right? You have the avoider and pursuer. And according to attachment styles, right, usually, the pursuer is the anxious attachment, right?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
they're worried about abandonment. They're worried that, this is it. The, partner can walk away or it will never be addressed, right? So they're trying to pursue, they're trying to finish the conversation, right? But they get to the point where neither of them can really handle this conversation, right? And handle the emotions. It's emotional affordance, right? And then you see one partner who starts to avoid. And a lot of people usually thinking like, well, if you avoid the conversation, if you avoid this conflict, you must be avoidant attachment style. But in reality, not necessarily. Maybe you're secure attachment style. Maybe you're disorganized attachment style. The whole idea is that you can't stay in this conversation right now, right this moment. You need to stop. You need to take a break. You need to bring yourself back to the ground level, think
Yes.
clearly, and then hopefully continue the
Right.
conversation.
And sometimes part of the solution and part of the resolution is not necessarily, let's hurry up and fix this right now. Because timing has a lot to do with how we interact in relationships. And we have to take into consideration, maybe now's not the time. Maybe we need to, like you said, Anna, take a step back, get grounded, get some perspective, and then we can come back to it.
So when we talk about emotional safety, how do you like what do you tell couples? How do you learn this emotional safety? How do you communicate emotional safety? Like what do you need in the moment?
So when I think of emotional safety, I think of the word consistency.
Hmm.
So I need to make sure that my partner is going to act, react, show up in a consistent manner. And then that, inadvertently, that makes me feel emotional safety.
Hmm.
So when we walk on eggshells, it's because we're not sure what our partner or how our partner is going to show up. If I say this, are they going to blow up? Are they going to call me names? Are they going to hang the phone up on me? Because that teaches me I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe with you right now. But I want to be sure that I can show up with any type of information, any type of situation, and I know that my partner is going to be there for me and it's going to be consistent.
Hmm. So how do you usually make sure that both partners realize that consistency is a key, and then how can they practice this consistency?
You know what's interesting is that I don't really have to tell them much of anything. By the time we get to this point in therapy, they pretty much can tell me, ooh, I don't think we're consistent, or I don't think we always do that, or how can we do that? And so that's where the communication part kicks in. So when we're feeling like we're walking on eggshells, when we're feeling like we can't bring something up, that's when we have to change the conversation. And that's when we have to demonstrate some vulnerability. And we have to be able to say, hey, listen, I need you to be able to listen to me right now. You might not like what I have to say, but it's really important that you hear me. And that's prompting the other person, like, okay, here's what I need from you. And if you guys, this is what I would say to couples, if you guys can do that over a period of time, that's developing the consistency, which will develop the emotional, the stability that we need,
Perfect.
the safety.
Is there any other tools or techniques couples can use in the moment when they have really hard time maybe identifying or, like learning, starting the process?
Yeah, so, every couple is different and they show up in different places in their relationship. So, to be honest with you, Anna, I don't think that it's like a cookie cutter, one solution fits all. I really like to identify what the strengths are of each couple, and
I think we lost the sound.
are you there?
Yes, we have the sound. Awesome.
Okay. Okay. Um, I'm not sure exactly what you heard last, but what I was saying is I feel like, there's not sort of one answer that applies to all couples, and it's not a cookie cutter approach. I like to assess what the couple's strengths are and where they are in their relationship. But at this point, in therapy, like I was saying before, communication is key. And I tell my couples, we need to be able to identify what our absolute needs and non-negotiables are. And we have to be able to communicate that. Because I can't get mad at you for not doing something that in my mind is an absolute need or non-negotiable if I don't even recognize it's a non-negotiable or a need, and I haven't had a chance to communicate that to you.
Mhm.
So I have couples saying all the time, one of my non-negotiables is not to go to bed angry. We can't go to bed angry. So I'll say, did you know that? Did you know that your wife doesn't want to go to bed angry? And the husband might say, this is the first time I'm hearing it. Okay, so it starts today. We have to identify what our non-negotiables are, communicate that, and then put it into practice.
And sometimes they kind of figure this out through therapy, right?
Oh,
They
absolutely.
they don't really have time to think about it or process or reflect, right? And then when they hear themselves speak, right? And when you ask them, so what do you need? Sometimes couples partners can say like, I don't even know. But then once they realize like what's important, right? And what they need from the partner, they always need to identify for themselves and then communicate to partners because our partners don't read our minds.
Right. And that's something that we have to look into. Do we have an expectation of our partners that we shouldn't have? They're not capable of reading our minds. And so we have to really dig deep and ask ourselves, what are my expectations? And are they even capable of meeting these expectations? Are they fair?
And so what's interesting, if you think about men versus women, right? So typically women are more emotional, right? They maybe have the like wider array of emotions, but they also able to talk about them. And then for
Hmm.
men, most of the time they have two emotions, right? That they're either fine or they're angry, right?
Hmm.
And what's interesting, like, whenever, I have men and I ask them like, hey, so what's going on? And they say like, well, I'm just there, but then I just can't take it anymore. Right. And for a lot of men, because they don't express emotions, they don't identify emotions, they just pack until they can't take it
Until
anymore.
they can't do it anymore. Exactly.
That's it. And
Hmm.
what's interesting, so there's this term is affect labeling, right? So that's when you need to, it helps with identifying your emotions and learning about emotional intelligence, right? So that's when, you know, like whenever, and again, like it's not necessarily men, but like I always tell my couples, so whenever you feel emotion, just say it out loud. You know, like you feel stressed, say like, hey, it's been a stressful day, right? It gives a chance for yourself to think like, okay, it's been a stressful day. What can I do for myself? Right? Do I need to take a break so I have a little bit more patience with my husband, with my kids, right? Do I need to do anything else? Maybe I'm hungry. Okay, great. I need food, right? Or maybe you say like, I've been really disappointed. I was waiting for the raise at work and then it never came, right?
Right.
So you usually see anger, but anger usually is a secondary emotion, right? What's
Exactly.
underneath, you know, we
Yeah.
see this anger iceberg, right? But what's underneath, we see disappointment, we see sadness, we see stress, we see a lot of things, right? But we,
100%.
what comes off is anger.
Right. Because when you think about it, anger is this emotion that is so socially acceptable, right? Like men, we just assume they're going to get angry. So if we see like a man, having a temper tantrum or having a fit or like punching the wall, like it's sort of no big deal because we've been conditioned to think that. But you know what? Anger is that emotion that, like you said, Anna, covers everything. What is underneath the anger? So I use this example a lot in therapy. Let's say a gentleman or a woman walks into my office, they trip
Mhm.
and they fall. And maybe they get up and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I fell. They're showing us that they're angry, but come on now. Are they angry? Maybe they're embarrassed.
Mhm.
Maybe they feel fearful that they could have gotten hurt. But we don't know how to go to that authentic feeling or that authentic emotion right away. So we act out in anger, and then everyone assumes we're angry when we're not always angry.
So trying to identify your emotions in the moment, right? Just say like what's going on. So,
Yeah,
and I know it's easier said than done, but then I feel like once, you know, my clients start to try it, it becomes much easier, the more they do it. And then, or sometimes they say like, I don't even know what I feel. So maybe you need to start with mapping your emotions, right? Think about like, okay, sadness. When was the last time you felt sad? What happened, right? When you
right.
felt frustrated. So what usually happens when you feel frustrated? So once you're able to identify emotions, then in the moment you can access them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're actually responsible for challenging ourselves. We must challenge ourselves before we put this label out there of, oh, I'm having a terrible day. I'm so angry today. Let's challenge that. Am I really angry? What else? What else is there? What's underneath?
So another thing I see with couples in my work, and tell me if you see the same thing. So couples come in, right? And then, especially when they're not happy with each other, they tend to notice everything that goes wrong and they miss everything that goes well, right? They're able to identify that one dish in a sink that was not washed, but then they miss a lot of things that are being done. And according to researches, one, you know, bad is greater than good, right? And then Goffman said you need five good things to cancel one bad thing.
Hmm.
So, what do you see? Like, what do you usually recommend couples who coming in and then they don't see eye to eye?
So I think that they probably are seeing more eye to eye than what they give themselves credit for. And I think that part of the work that has to be done in this situation is being really, really intentional
Mm-hmm.
and really mindful because there are things happening. There are other actions that we are doing for each other, towards each other. And why is it that we're only seeing or feeling that one thing
Mm-hmm.
that's going to make or break the day or make or break the night? So I like to tell couples we really have to work with what is going on right now. What's happening right now, Anna? It's not what happened yesterday or the day before. We have to stay present and we have to show up very, very intentional. And if we do that, chances are we're going to identify other interactions, ways that we actually are connecting and we are communicating and we are meeting each other's needs.
Perfect. How about burnout?
Burnout.
So what happens? Is it do you see it in relationships? Because I know like this burnout, it's not just showing up at work, right? Some couples they just stop attending to their partners. They quiet quitting, right? Same thing as we do at work. Some couples start doing the same thing in relationships.
Yeah, so I think, and I love that you just use that term because I think a lot of people think burnout has to only do in the professional realm, and that's not the case. We get burnt out of situations, we get burnt out of having the same conversation over and over again. And I think that, especially in couples, we see it when there's a disconnection, right? So when the person who is feeling burnout, they're probably isolating.
Hmm.
They're probably becoming a bit numb. They're not showing up to important conversations or important family rituals or events. And at that moment, just like we would advise somebody professionally, okay, we have to assess. We have to assess where are we and what can we do differently. And it might not be a lifelong change. Maybe we just have to change things up for a short period of time. And it's really important to communicate that to our partner, because if I'm only feeling, 10%, I'm not going to be able to show up the way you want me to show up. And it's my responsibility to communicate that to you. I need to tell you, I'm only feeling at 10%. So I might have to do things differently. We might have to change things up for a little bit until I can re-energize, reinvent myself, recharge.
Is there like any particular good ways to recharge that social battery or like your relationship battery?
Well, I think for relationships, a way to recharge is to do exactly what we're promoting and exactly what we're talking about. Obviously, I'm a huge advocate of therapy. Unfortunately, I know that there are people who, might not have had a wonderful experience. But I think if you find the right fit and you find someone that you feel safe with, and you respect them and you trust them, so much work can get done. So for couples that are feeling burnt out, or if one partner within that relationship is feeling burnt out, I think it's really important to show up. Just continue to show up for yourself, and we'll figure out the unique ways that you need to fill your cup, because everybody's different. I mean, someone might say, oh, I just need to take a few days and I need to disconnect, or I need to. That works, but it might not work for everyone. So being really open to explore options and being open to receive recommendations, and knowing that not everything may work, but we're going to find something. We're going to find something that works for you.
Awesome. Yeah. Therapy works only if you actually showing up to your appointments, right? Just
Absolutely.
joining the session, right? Coming into the office is 50% of success.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, right? Just like, insight and awareness. That's only half the battle, right? We're like, okay, we know why we are the way we are. We know, why, what makes us tick. We know why we do all these things. That's great. Great to know why. But now we have to implement the change. Where is the intervention? What's going to be different this time?
Absolutely. And as we're talking about, how to fill your cup, I love, love, love this exercise is ABC coping skills. So A is accumulate positive emotions. And then how do you do that? So you start small. Think of five senses: what you can smell, what you can taste, hear, see, touch, right? We have small little moments through the day. We just don't see them and don't recognize them, right? And then I usually ask my clients, make a list, right? What makes you feel good? When you feel sun on your skin, it makes you feel good, right? Make a little note, mental note, right? Maybe smelling of fresh brewed coffee makes you feel good, right? Maybe hearing birds singing, right, makes you feel good. One of my clients said putting cherry chopstick feels good, right?
Okay.
All these like
Hmm.
little things, right? For me, like especially if I wear heels, when I take my heels off, it feels so good, right? So
But
recognize,
you're open, you are opening yourself up to recognize the little things because we're so conditioned to think what makes me feel good. A cruise, what makes me feel good? A massage, what makes me feel good? Going to an exotic island, that's not what it's about. It's about what you just said.
yeah.
I'm wearing these high heels all day, and when I finally take them off, I love that feeling of like, okay, I'm comfortable now.
So B, building mastery, right? So what I usually tell my clients, it can be something small, right? For example, you can go on Duolingo and learn the new language. You can start, I don't know, ice skating. You can, I know in
Mhm.
Florida, I mean, I guess like great places to ice skate, right? Especially South Florida.
We
Um,
have we have those indoor ice skating rinks. We can do it.
yep. Maybe cooking something, right? A new recipe. So the whole idea is getting better at something. So this way you feel good, right? You have the hits of dopamine that makes us feel good, complete, and also creates this motivation, momentum to keep going. And then
Exactly.
C is cope ahead of time. So that's when you think of this past situations that didn't go the way you wanted them to go. And then instead of dwelling in them, you think of like, what can I do differently? Right? Whatever happened, happened. What can I learn from this experience and how can I make it better? If you think about, people, places, situations, right, that make you feel anxious, frustrated, right, uneasy, think, what can you do differently to make this experience better? So A, B,
Right.
C coping skills. So that's
I
my
like that. I like that a lot. Thank you.
So as we start wrapping up, if you can share with our viewers where they can find you, your social media, website.
Yes. So my name is Kristi Newhouse, and my website is www.kristi, Kristi, Newhouse, Newhouse.com. I am also on Facebook, and you can find me at Kristi Newhouse, LCSW.
Perfect, thank you. And then before we wrap up, if you can provide one final piece of advice, something, something that you love to use, something that our viewers can take away right away and maybe utilize it tonight, tomorrow.
Okay. One piece of advice. I guess I'm going to piggyback off of your last comment about coping ahead of time.
Mhm.
One piece of advice is if we find ourselves in the same situation as maybe we have in the past, what did we do in the past that didn't work? Let's try something different. Because a lot of times we are on this autopilot, this robotic, this default button is always pressed. And so one thing that we can do is try to look forward as if I end up in a situation that I have in the past, if I end up, whatever, how can I do things differently? How can I get myself out of this, or how can I participate in this differently so that I take experience from it and it's not just repeat. We don't want repeat of dysfunctional behaviors or old patterns. We want to try things that are newer.
We want to bring change. And I guess, as I always joke, what's the definition of insanity? When you're trying to, when expecting the different outcome when you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, right? So we want to make sure, okay, it's not working, didn't work, so let me do something new, right? Have a
You
new
got it.
experience. Awesome. So once again, Kristi, thank you. Thank you for being here with us. You're absolutely amazing. And then what's your website? Can you tell us again?
Sure, it's www.kristinewhouse.com, and I had such a great time. This was wonderful. So I really appreciate you, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Absolutely. It was amazing having you here. Thank you for watching us, and we will see you again in 2 weeks. Thank you, and bye bye.
Thank you.